Welcome to my channel. A big thank you to my viewers who have suggested today's content. Korean Airflight 85. The day was September 11, 2001. Korean Airflight 85 was making its way to Ted Stevens International Airport in Stevens, Alaska. Everything was going well on the flight and it just seemed like any other routine flight for the pilots on board. However, while en route to the airport, the pilots started to receive information about what was happening that day in the 9/11 attacks. The pilot on board replied to the message he had received by putting HJK, which is a distress signal meaning the plane had been hijacked. It is believed that he was ordered to do so by his company, which he obeyed, and for those on the ground, they believed they had another hijacked plane. It is unclear as to why he was ordered to give this order, but it is reported that he then sent another message asking those on the ground to disregard the previous message, but by this time it was too late. Those on the ground thought it was a hijacker inside the cockpit giving this message, and now there was great concern over this flight. Flight 85 was now ordered to fly to Whitehorse International Airport in Yukon, Canada to land. However, the Canadian Prime Minister authorized the aircraft to be shot down if he didn't obey to the instructions given, and 2 F-15 military jets were deployed to escort the aircraft to land. It was now vital to bring this aircraft down safely, especially in the light of all that was happening that day. The pilots obeyed these instructions and safely landed the plane at the airport. There seems to be some confusion as to why the aircraft indicated it had been hijacked. It was reported that it could have been a communication error on board the plane. However, it seems the airline and pilots have kept very quiet about what happened that day, and different theories have been made. Some believe it could have been a training exercise, or that the airline had put HJK as a question, not a warning. However, whatever you may believe, it still seems to remain unclear as to what really happened up in the cockpit that day. Fedex Express Flight 910. It was October 28, 2016. The aircraft had first been built in 1972 as a passenger airline, but would later be converted into a cargo plane. It would go on to be FedEx Express Flight 910. FedEx had been on a routine flight and was about to land at Fort Lauderdale. However, the tower reported seeing the left side engine looking like it was on fire. The plane continued with its landing, with what appeared to be the wing on fire, and the main gear collapsed. Emergency services were quickly deployed to the scene. Lucky for those on board, all escaped without any injuries, and the fire would be put out, but the aircraft had substantial damage. An investigation began by the NTSB as to what had happened to this aircraft. It was on October 31 that the NTSB reported that the main gear had failed after landing, and the left engine had scraped along the runway before the plane came to a stop. It would be on August 23, 2018 that the NTSB reported that the failure was the result of metal fatigue, and said that FedEx's failure to overhaul the gear had contributed towards the crash, and that corrosion-induced fatigue cracking had caused the left main landing gear to collapse as the plane came into land. This no doubt was an accident that could have been avoided. Fedex Flight 14. Fedex Flight 14 was a scheduled cargo flight from Singapore to Newark, New Jersey. It would be on July 31, 1997 that the aircraft was on its scheduled route when it would crash during the landing on its final approach to Newark International Airport. The plane would end up on fire and on its back. There had been 5 people on board, all managed to escape the aircraft and survived. It is believed that the pilots had been concerned during the flight that they would have little stopping distance after they landed, and the captain decided to put the aircraft down early on the runway. It is also believed that the aircraft had departed that day with the thrust reverser on the left engine inoperative. It is believed that the pilots had also misinterpreted the runway data, and believed that they had less stopping distance than they actually had. It has been reported that the Flight 14 touched down, bounced and rolled to its right, then they had the second touchdown where the right gear snapped and engine 3 on the right wing came into contact with the runway. The aircraft would eventually come to rest on the right side of the runway on its back where it was on fire. Those on board were extremely lucky and all managed to escape through the cockpit window, to get away from the burning aircraft. This could have been very different if they weren't able to escape through the cockpit window. The fire would completely destroy the aircraft. The NTSB were brought in to investigate the crash. The NTSB wanted to investigate why the captain had taken the actions he had that day. They would conclude that the probable cause of the crash was the captain's over-control of the plane during the landing, leading to the chain of events that followed. The NTSB would go on to make new recommendations based on their conclusion of the crash of Fedex Flight 14. The captain of Flight 14 would later be fired in 2000 for his role in the crash. However, the FedEx union was deciding to appeal against this decision, citing that the crash was caused by design flaws. It seems unclear what happened after this. We will never really know if this accident could have been avoided if the captain had taken different actions on landing that day. It was extremely lucky that on all 3 of these aircraft incidents, that nobody was killed. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel to view other content.